Hi, fifth grade. I hope you're keeping cool. It's been getting pretty warm in the afternoons. All right, so do you remember how to divide by 10? So if we have a decimal 24.5 or zero point 0.5 or 0.099 and I want to divide it by 10, do I move the decimal to the left one place or to the right one place? I move it to the left one place because when I divide a number, it gets smaller. Okay, so let's move that to the left one place, move that to the left one place, and move this to the left one place. Where my arrow points towards, that's where the new decimal point will be. So for 24.5 divided by 10, my new decimal point will be between the 2 and the 4. So that'll be 2.45. And for my 0.5, my decimal point will come right before the 0. So that'll be 0.05. And for 0.099 divided by 10, my decimal point will come before this first 0 here. So it'll be 0. Oh, this is wrong. This is 0.099. So that's my bad. Okay. So that one is, let me write it in. That one should be 0.0099, like this. Okay. I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place. All right. So this is the right answer for the third one. Okay. So let's divide decimals by 100 and 1,000. So look at this example. So I have the number 3,000 and it's written in this place value chart, but if I divide it by 100, how many place values do my digits move? They move over 1, 2 places to the right. Do you see that? Okay. So 300 divided by 100, or 3,000 divided by 100 becomes 30.00, and I'm just copying it here, and we'll talk more about this after we take some notes about the observations from this chart. Okay. All right. Next, well, in here, okay, we have 3, and we're dividing it by 100. So when I do that again, my numbers move over to the right 2 place values, right? And that looks like 3 divided by 100 is equal to 0.03. Now, what happens to the digits of the decimal when it is divided by 100? It moves over 2 places to the right in the place value chart. Now, let's look at 1,000s. Okay. Well, before we do that, I'm going to change my 3,000 into a decimal here. So it's 3,000.0, and my 3 into a decimal 3.0. Okay, so I change that. And then when I divide it by 100, to get 30.0, I have to move my decimal point over to the left 2 spaces. So my decimal point will be between the first 0 and the second 0, which will be this answer. Let's look here at 3.0 divided by 100. We're going to move our decimal point 2 places to the left. So it'll be here. But look at this pocket. It's empty. So empty pockets, we always have to fill it with zeros. Okay. And then now, my decimal point will come before this green 0. So my answer is 0.03. So now let's look at this place value chart with 1,000. So I have 3,000, but I want to divide it by 1,000. So look at this 3,000. It moves over 1, 2, 3 places to the right. This 0 moves over 1, 2, 3 places to the right, and so forth. Okay. So let's rewrite this division sentence over here. So that's 3,000 divided by 1,000 is equal to 3.000. Let's look at another division with 1,000. So we have a 3, and then I want to divide it by 1,000. So then again, here's my 3, and when I divide it by 1,000, it comes here in the place value chart. So it's moved over to the right, 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. Okay. So let's write that division sentence right here. Okay. 3 divided by 1,000 is 0.003, and I'm just copying that from here. 3 divided by 1,000 is 0.003 over here. Okay. So what happens to the digits of the decimal when it is divided by 1,000? In the place value chart, it moves over 3 places to the right, okay, as we saw. So let's go back here. I'm going to change my 3003 into a decimal point. So my 3000 becomes 3000.0, my 3 becomes 3.0. Okay, so I changed it here. Now, for me to have 3000.0 divided by 1000 and to get 3.00, that means I have to move my decimal point over to the left 3 places. Okay, so it has to be between the 3 and the 0 here. And then that'll get me 3.00. Same thing here with 3.0. When I divide by 1000, I have to move my decimal point over 3 places. 1, 2, 3, which creates 2 empty pockets here. You see that? The first pocket that is created is filled with the 3, but now I have 2 empty pockets. So I have to fill my pockets with a 0, and then my decimal point comes before this blue 0 here, the first blue 0 here. So 0.003. So to recap, when I divide by 10, when I divide by 100, or when I divide by 1000, I have to move the decimal place over to the left 1 time for 10, to the left 2 times for 100, to the left 3 times for 1000. Okay, so let's move this over once here. Okay, for the 100, I'm going to move it over twice here. And for my 1000, I'm going to move it over to the left 3 places here. But now, look here, I have empty pockets, so I'm going to fill my empty pockets here with a 0. And so, now let's find the answers, okay? 0.25 divided by 10 is 0.025, okay? And 0.25 divided by 100 is 0.0025, and 0.25 divided by 1000 is 0.00025. Okay? And you can remember with division, you move it to the left when you divide by 10, 100, or 1000. And the number of places you move over to the left depends on how many zeros there are, right? 10 has 1 0, 100 has 2 zeros, and 1000 has 3 zeros here, okay? So because 10 has 1 0, you move it over to the left once. Because 100 has 2 zeros, you move it over to the left twice. Because 1000 has 3 zeros, you move it over to the left 3 times. That's a good way for you to remember. Alright, I'm going to move my video screen just a tad. Okay? Can you guys pause the video and try these guided practice problems on your own? Alright, I'll see you when you're ready. Alright, hey, you must be ready. So notice here for 14, 15, and 16, we're dividing by 100. So that means I have to move my decimal place to the left twice. Okay, so I'm going to do that for 14, 15, and 16. Okay. Now here, I move that over from here. So it's between the 3 and the 0. So that's 3.08. So here, 3.8, I moved it to the left 2 spaces. I have this empty pocket here, so I have to put a 0 there. And my decimal point comes right before that green 0. So that's 0.038. Now here, 1, 2, I move it over to the left here, and my pockets are filled, so my decimal point comes before the 3, so 0.308. And for when I divide by 1000, I have to move it over to the left 3 places. Okay, so my decimal point is here, and I move it over to the left 3 places, so my decimal point goes between the 2 and the 0. So that is 2.016. Let's look at numbers 22. So 22, for me to get from 1.061, and then I have 1061, it looks like I have to put my decimal point here, right? Between the 1 and the 0, okay? So if I put it there, I move my decimal point 3 places to the left, okay? So when I move it 3 places to the left, I divided it by 1000. Now here, where's my decimal point? It comes before the 8, so it comes right here. So again, I have to move my decimal point 1, 2, 3 places to the left for my decimal point to come right before the 8. So that means I have to divide it by 1000. Now let's look here. I have something divided by 100 is 3.01. So to figure out this number here, I'm going to move my decimal point here to the right 2 times. Okay. So if I move it to the right 2 times, it comes after the 1. So that's 301. But let's double check. If I do 301 divided by 100, do I get 3.01? Well, 301, my decimal point is right here after the 1. So if I divide it by 100, that means I have to move it over to the left 2 times. And my decimal point comes between the 3 and the 0, which is exactly what I want. So 301 divided by 100 is 3.01. Now let's take a look here. Something divided by 1,000 is 67.25. So I'm dividing it by 1,000 here, but my answer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my decimal place over to the right 3 times to figure out what number that was that I divided by 1,000. So if I move it over to the right 3 times here, I have an empty pocket, so I have to fill that with a 0, okay? And my decimal point comes after that green 0. So my answer here is 67,250, okay? But now let's double check to see if I divide this number by 1,000, do I get 67.25? Let's see, so my decimal point is here, and I have to move it over to the left 3 times if I divide by 1,000. 1, 2, 3. So it comes between the 7 and the 2, which is exactly my answer right here. My decimal point is between the 7 and the 2. So that works. Alright, way to go. So let's divide decimals by hundreds and thousands. So notice hundreds is plural, thousands is plural. Okay. So look at this example. So if we're going to divide 28 by 200, we get this division sentence, 28 divided by 200. Okay. And I'm just going to make my video screen just a little bit bigger so you can see what I wrote. Okay. And so I have 28 divided by 200. But remember, when I want to divide a number by another number, I can change it to a multiplication sentence, okay? And the way that I do that is I keep the first number, okay, which is my dividend, okay? And then I change the operation into multiplication, and then I multiply by the reciprocal. My divisor is here, 200, and so I change that into the reciprocal, which is 1 over 200, okay? So 28 divided by 200 is the same thing as saying 28 times 200. But now let's break apart 1 over 200, okay? And I want to break it apart by taking out hundreds, okay? Because I'm really good at dividing by hundreds, okay? So 1 over 200 is the same thing as saying 1/2 times 1 over 100. Because if I multiply the numerator, it's 1. If I multiply the denominator, it's 200. So it's the same thing here, okay? So then now, 28 times 1 over 200 can become 28 times 1/2 times 1 over 100, which is the same thing as saying 28 times the reciprocal of 2 times the reciprocal of 100. But I can change this into a division problem again, okay? So I'm going to change it as 28 divided by the reciprocal of 2, right, becomes just 2. And then the reciprocal of 100 just becomes 100. So it's 28 divided by 2 divided by 100. Now we have the same operations here, so I have to go left to right. So I'm going to do 28 divided by 2 first, and it's written on your screen right there. Okay. So 28 divided by 2, that means half of 28 is 14. And when I want to do 14 divided by 100, I have to move the decimal point over to the left twice. So my decimal point comes right before the 1. So that's 0.14. Let's look at another example. 2.8, divide 2.8 by 200. So my division sentence is here, 2.8 divided by 200. But I want to change my division into 2.8 divided by 200 into a multiplication. So the way that I do that is I keep the first number, 2.8, I change the operation from division to multiplication, then I multiply by the reciprocal over here. My divisor changes into the reciprocal, which is 1 over 200. Okay, and if you forgot why I do this, look at the video from yesterday. Okay, so now I have 2.8 times 1 over 200, but I want to see how many hundredths I can get, okay, out of this, because I'm really good at dividing by 100. So 1 over 200 becomes 1 half times 1 over 100. Okay, so then 2.8 times 1 over 200 becomes 2.8 times the reciprocal of 2 times the reciprocal of 100. And this can become a division sentence, right? 2.8 divided by 2 divided by 100. All right? And so because my operations are the same, I'm going to put a parentheses around the first 2 here, 2.8 divided by 2, okay? And then that's on your screen right now, okay? And 2.8 divided by 2, well, let's see what it is. Okay, I'm going to do long division here. 2 times what gets you 2? It's just 1. So I'm going to subtract 2, drop the 8. 2 times what gets you 8? That's a 4, right? Minus the 8 and the 0. And now I have to put my decimal point right here, okay? And I'm done, so it's 1.4. Okay? So now I have 1.4 divided by 100. So I'm dividing by 100, so I have to move the decimal place over to the left twice. Okay? And now I have an empty pocket right here. I have to fill my empty pockets with zeros. So my decimal point comes right before that green 0. So it is 0.014. Let's look at our last example. We have to divide 69 by 3,000, and our division sentence looks like that. And I rewrote it right here. Okay. And I'm going to change this division sentence into a multiplication sentence. So I'm going to just multiply 69 by the reciprocal of 3,000, which is 1 3,000. Okay. And I want to change 1 3,000 into seeing how many thousands are there in 1 3,000. Okay. Because I'm really good at multiplying by, or dividing by 1,000. So 1 3,000 becomes 1/3 times 1,000. Okay, because if I multiply the numerator, it's 1, and I multiply the denominator, it's 3 times 1,000, which is 3,000, which is 1 3,000. And then so 69 times 1 3,000 becomes 69 times 1/3 times 1 1,000. Or in other words, we can say 69 times the reciprocal of 3 times the reciprocal of 1,000. And I can change that into a division sentence by saying 69 divided by 3 divided by 1,000. And it's the same operation, so I'm going to do 69 divided by 3 first, and that's in the parentheses for you on your screen. Okay, and so let's do 69 divided by 3 here using long division. Okay, 3 times what gets you 6, that's 2. Drop the 9. 3 times what gets you 9, that's a 3. And you're done. Okay, so it's 23. So now I have 23 divided by 1,000. So when I divide by 1,000, I have to move my decimal place to the left 3 times because there's 3 zeros in 1,000. Okay, so there I go. So I have an empty pocket right here. Do you see that? Okay, so I have to fill my empty pocket with a 0. So I put a green 0 over there. And then my decimal point comes right before that green 0. So the answer is 0.023. Okay, can you pause the video and do numbers 26, 27, and 28 on your own? Alright, see you in a bit. Hey, how was it? So I'm just going to enlarge my video. So now we have 16 divided by 400. Okay, so 16 divided by 400, okay, here, is the same thing as saying the multiplication sentence, 16 times the reciprocal of 400, okay, and then I'm going to see how many hundredths are there in 1 400ths. So 1 400ths becomes 1/4 times 1 100th. So 16 times the reciprocal 400 becomes 16 times the reciprocal 4 times the reciprocal of 100. And I can change this into a division sentence by saying 16 divided by 4 divided by 100. And again, I'm going to do 16 divided by 4 first because of order of operations. And that's written for you up there on the screen now. Okay. So what is 16 divided by 4? We have to do that first, right? Because that's in the parentheses. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So now I have 4 divided by 100. So I'm going to just move my decimal point over to the left 2 times because there's 2 zeros in 100. So let's do that. I have an empty pocket here. I have to fill that with a 0. And now my decimal point comes right before that 0 I created. So my answer is 0.04. Let's go to 27. 1.6 divided by 400. Okay? So 1.6 divided by 400 is the same thing as saying 1.6 times the reciprocal of 400. And then I'm going to break apart the reciprocal of 400 to see how many hundreds there are, because eventually I want to divide by 100, and I'm excellent in dividing by 100. So 1 400ths becomes 1/4 times 1 100th. So 1.6 times the reciprocal of 400 is the same thing as saying 1.6 times the reciprocal of 4 times the reciprocal of 100. And I can change this into a division sentence where it's 1.6 divided by 4 divided by 100. Okay? And I'm going to do 1.6 divided by 4 first because that's what the order of operation tells me to do, and that's written for you on the screen. Okay? And now I have to do 1.6 divided by 4. So I'm going to do it right here. Okay? 4 times what gets me to 1 or close to 1. Okay? That's 0. So I'm going to just write a 0. So 4 times 0 is 0, so I'm going to subtract that. So this is a 1, and I'm going to bring down the 6. Okay? And now 4 times what gets me 16. That's 4. Subtract 16, and I get a 0. And I can't forget to put the decimal point in the correct spot right there. Okay? So 1.6 divided by 4 is 0.4. Okay? And now I have to divide by 100. That means I have to move my decimal place over to the left twice. So there I go. And I see an empty pocket right here. I have to fill my pocket with zeros. Okay, so there's my 0. And my decimal point comes right before that purple 0. So my answer is 0.004. Okay, our last one, 28. 36 divided by 4,000. So 36 divided by 4,000 is the same thing as saying the multiplication sentence. I just want my camera to focus. I'm going to try to put it close so it focuses. Okay, there we go. Okay. It's the same thing as saying 36 times the reciprocal of reciprocal of 4,000. And I want to break apart my 1/4,000ths into thousands, because eventually I want to divide by 1,000 because I know the rule for dividing by 1,000. So 1/4,000ths becomes 1/4 times 1/1000. So 36 times the reciprocal of 4,000 is the same thing as saying 36 times the reciprocal of 4 times the reciprocal of 1,000. And I can change this into a division sentence right here. 36 divided by 4 divided by 1,000. Okay? And I'm going to do 36 divided by 4 first because of the rules in the order of operations, and that's written for you on the screen right now. And 36 divided by 4 is 9. Okay, so 9 divided by 1,000, I have to move my decimal point over to the left 3 times because I see that there's 3 zeros in 1,000. So there I go. Oh, this creates 2 empty pockets here. I have to fill my empty pockets with zeros, so here I go. And now my decimal point comes before that first 0 I created. So 0.009 as my answer. Alright, well, just keep practicing and remember what to do when you divide by 10, what to do when you divide by 100, and what to do when you divide by 1,000. Okay? All right, that's all for today. Have a good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow during our video. Bye.